Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to turn complex ideas into, well, clear insights you can actually use.
That's the plan.
And today, we're tackling a big one. This idea that creativity has to be a struggle, that you need to, force it.
Right. We've been digging into some fascinating sources that suggest otherwise.
Yeah, whole stack, actually. It looks like unlocking creativity, breaking through those mental blocks, might be more about intentional presence, not just effort.
Exactly. Our sources. It's a real mix. We've got deep dives into psychology, some specific academic research on something called mindful play.
Mindful play, okay.
And some very practical guides, too. And they all point towards, well, a trainable path to getting those innovative ideas flowing more consistently.
So our mission today is pretty clear then. We're exploring this blend, this fusion of artistic expression and being present, sometimes called arty mindfulness.
That's one term for it, yeah.
And we want to give you a kind of blueprint for getting into that flow state, that focus zone everyone's chasing.
Right. So let's maybe start with mindfulness itself. Because it's more than just relaxing, isn't it?
Definitely.
The researchers we looked at, people like Langer and Siegel, they really stress that it's about actively noticing new things. Right now.
Actively noticing.
Your thoughts, feelings, what's around you.
Yeah.
But crucially, without judging them.
That active part feels key. Because just passively being aware, well, we just fall back into old habits.
Exactly. Active noticing forces your brain to deal with novelty. And that's fundamental if you want to break out of those ruts, those creative blocks.
Okay, and the goal here is creativity. How are the sources defining that?
It's pretty consistent. The ability to come up with ideas that are, one, original, and two, valuable.
Original and valuable, got it.
And to get there, you really need two kinds of thinking. There's divergent thinking, that's the brainstorming part, generating lots of options. And then convergent thinking, narrowing it down, finding the best single solution from all those possibilities.
And boosting both of those. That's where flow comes in. The famous flow state from Halide Csikszentmihalyi.
Precisely. That's the zone, yeah, where you're super focused, time kind of disappears, and you're just performing at your best.
We've all felt it, hopefully. But what's actually happening inside our heads? In the brain?
This is where it gets really interesting, neurologically speaking. During flow, your brain actually undergoes something called transient hypofrontality.
Transient hypofrontality. Okay, break that down.
It means there's a temporary quieting down, less activity in your prefrontal cortex.
But wait, isn't the prefrontal cortex like the CEO? Handling judgment, planning, self-control. Quieting, it sounds risky.
Well, yes and no. Think of it less like turning off the CEO and more like telling the really critical micromanaging part of the CEO to take a coffee break.
Oh, okay. I like that.
That part, the bit responsible for constant self-monitoring and fear of messing up, it steps back. So the brain isn't wasting energy second-guessing everything.
Which frees it up.
Exactly. It allows for quicker, maybe more unusual connections between ideas. You can move beyond your standard, safe ways of thinking. And here's the kicker. Mindfulness is a reliable way into that state.
How so?
By anchoring you in the present, it stops you from getting derailed by, anxieties about the past or worries about the future. Those things pull you right out of flow.
So mindfulness clears the mental runway for hypofrontality to happen. Okay, makes sense.
Okay.
Let's get into the specific psychological gears turning here. What are the mechanisms that mindfulness uses to prime us for innovation? You mentioned 3.
Yeah, 3 key ones stand out in the research. First up is what we can call the flexibility advantage.
Flexibility.
Mindfulness practice actively chips away at cognitive rigidity. That's the tendency to get stuck in mental ruts, approaching every problem the same old way.
Like having only one tool in your toolbox even when you need a different one.
Exactly that. Mindfulness helps you build the whole toolbox. It fosters cognitive flexibility, the ability to adapt, to shift your thinking patterns on the fly.
So when you hit a wall on a creative problem,
this flexibility lets you suddenly see a completely different angle, one your usual rigid thinking would have just ignored.
Okay, advantage 1, flexibility. What's the second mechanism?
This one tackles that inner critic we were just talking about, the inner critic bypass.
Yes. The voice of doom.
That's the one. Self-doubt, perfectionism. These are massive creativity killers because they trigger the brain's threat response. You go into defensive mode.
And defensive mode is not innovative mode.
Not at all. Now, mindfulness doesn't magically silence the critic forever. That's probably impossible.
Right.
But it changes your relationship to it. It helps you regulate your emotions so you can notice the stress, the anxiety, that voice saying, this is terrible.
Without letting it paralyze you.
Exactly. You observe it, acknowledge it maybe, but it doesn't hijack your actions. This keeps you open, curious, even when the outcome feels uncertain, which is pretty much always the case with creative work.
That idea of observing the fear instead of fighting the block itself feels really crucial.
Okay, and the third mechanism. This one sounded a bit paradoxical. Harnessing mind wandering.
It does sound like a contradiction.
Yeah.
We're always told to focus, focus, focus.
Yeah, but then best ideas pop up when you're, I don't know, taking a shower or something.
Precisely. So mindfulness definitely helps with the focused attention you need to actually do the creative work. But, and here's the paradox, it also seems to enable a more beneficial kind of mind wandering.
Beneficial mind wandering. As opposed to
just getting lost in an anxiety spiral. Mindful mind wandering is more like letting your subconscious gently sift through things in the background. It allows for those unexpected connections, that incubation period.
That leads to the aha moment.
Exactly, without letting the distraction totally take over and derail you. It's a controlled drift, maybe? Okay, so mindfulness helps create flexibility, manage the inner critic, and even makes mind wandering productive. We see why it works.
Yeah.
Now let's get practical. How do we actually do this? What's in the arty mindfulness toolkit the research suggests?
Right, moving from the why to the how. The good news is the sources offer some really accessible techniques, no fancy art degree needed.
Good to hear. What's first?
3 foundational ones. First is color breathing. This merges breath awareness with visualization.
Color breathing. Sounds intriguing. How does it work?
Simple, really. You sit quietly, and as you inhale, you imagine breathing in a color that represents an energy you need. Maybe like vibrant orange for enthusiasm or calm blue for focus.
Okay.
Then, as you exhale, you visualize releasing a color that represents whatever's blocking you. Maybe a murky gray for anxiety. And then this is the important part. You immediately grab some paper, crayons, paint, whatever, and just capture any colors or shapes that come to mind. No thinking, no judging. Just translate that breath experience visually.
Instantly connecting the internal shift to external creation. I like it. What's technique number 2?
Sensory drawing. This one is designed specifically to bypass your intellectual, analytical brain.
No.
You pick an object, any object, but then you explore it using all your senses except sight, feel its texture, its temperature, its weight, tap it, smell it, listen to it. Really immerse yourself in the non-visual experience.
Right.
Then you close your eyes and you try to draw or maybe even sculpt the feeling of that sensory experience. Not what the object looks like, but what it felt like.
So you're drawing the texture, the temperature.
Exactly. It forces you out of your visual defaults and into a more intuitive, tactile mode of creating.
Clever. Okay, and the third foundational practice.
This one's great for building momentum quickly. It's called the 5-minute flow state.
Just 5 minutes.
Just 5 minutes. Set a timer, pick up a pen, pencil, brush, whatever. And for those 5 minutes, you create continuously. Doodling, writing, sketching, doesn't matter what. The only rule is constant motion. Don't lift the pen if you can help it.
What's the point of the constant motion?
It forces you past the urge to stop and criticize. That inner critic will chime in saying, this is pointless or this looks bad.
Right.
But because the rule is continuous motion, you just have to observe that thought and keep moving. It trains your brain to tolerate imperfection and stay in the process. Builds those flow pathways.
A micro workout for flow. Love it. Okay, those are foundational. What about going deeper or sustaining things when it gets tough?
Good question. The sources highlight a couple of let's call them advanced practices. First is emotional palette translation.
Emotional palette.
Yeah, identify an emotion you're feeling right now. Maybe frustration, maybe excitement. But instead of getting lost in the story behind the emotion, you choose colors, shapes, lines, textures that you feel represent that emotion. And you create a purely abstract image, not a picture of something, just the visual equivalent of the feeling.
So you're externalizing the feeling visually instead of just looping on it in your head.
Precisely. It gives the emotion a kind of visual vocabulary. It's a way to process it actively, physically, rather than just thinking about it.
That makes sense. And the second advanced technique.
Mindful material exploration. This is great when you're feeling blocked or just resistant to starting something big.
Okay.
I dedicate maybe 10 minutes to just interacting really slowly and deliberately with one single art material. Could be a lump of clay, feeling its texture, how it responds. Could be exploring the nuances of a single tube of paint or a specific brush in a digital art program.
So really small scale focus.
Tiny scale. The goal is slow, curious, sensory engagement with the material itself. It often unlocks unexpected ideas about how to use it, and it bypasses that overwhelming feeling of the huge, daunting project.
It sounds almost like tricking yourself into starting by making the first step really small and interesting.
Kind of, yeah. It shifts focus from the intimidating outcome to the immediate sensory experience. Very effective for breaking inertia.
These are great practical tools. Now, this blend of mindfulness and creativity, it's not just for personal practice, is it? Let's shift to part 4, real-world applications. The sources talk about mindful play being used in education, even higher education.
Yes, mindful play is framed as a serious pedagogical approach. It seems to be built on 4 key pillars: trust, play, mindfulness itself, and risk-taking.
Trust, play, mindfulness, risk-taking.
Okay, the core idea is to create a learning space where students feel genuinely safe. Safe enough to play with ideas, to be present, and importantly, to take creative and intellectual risks.
Risks like?
Like sharing a really unconventional idea, or asking a question that feels naive, or trying something that might not work. That requires trust between students and with the instructor.
And some of the ways they foster this, they sound surprisingly simple, like adult coloring in.
In universities.
Yeah, it sounds maybe trivial, but the study cited showed real results. Using adult coloring books in university settings measurably reduced symptoms of depression and anxiety among the students.
And it actually increased their reported concentration capacity. So a simple, low-stakes way to bring mindfulness into a high-stress academic environment.
Makes sense during exam periods, I guess. What about this object-based play idea? Using things like Lego or jewelry kits with older students.
This one's really innovative. The idea is to use simple tactile materials to get students thinking differently about complex course content.
How would that work? Give me an example.
Okay, say in a history or design module about the 1970s, instead of just writing an essay, students might be asked to use a cheap jewelry kit to design a piece that somehow represents a key social or economic trend from that decade.
So it forces them out of just analyzing text.
Exactly. Into physical making, metaphorical thinking, problem solving in 3 dimensions. And the sources say it really sparks conversation and collaboration, what they call dialogic learning, in a way that a standard seminar often doesn't.
Interesting. And the last example was role play for risk-taking.
Right. Using role play exercises not just for assessment, but as a low-stakes way to practice difficult skills and build confidence.
Like practicing a presentation.
Or the example given was journalism students practicing tough interview scenarios with each other. Because it was play, done in a safe environment with peers, they felt freer to experiment, to try unconventional approaches.
And that paid off later.
Apparently, yes.
Yeah.
The students who engaged in this low-stakes role play showed significantly more comfort, originality, and, well, innovation in their final high-stakes assessed presentations. It demonstrates that creating psychological safety really is like fertilizer for creativity.
It all connects back. So taking this even broader, beyond education, we see big companies, Google, Apple, investing in mindfulness programs. This isn't just a wellness perk anymore, is it?
No, the sources position it as a genuine strategic advantage now. Leaders who practice mindfulness consistently report things like clearer thinking under pressure, better emotional intelligence in managing teams.
And being more adaptable to change.
Exactly. Greater adaptability, which is crucial today. In a world that's just getting more complex and fast-paced, the ability for individuals and teams to stay grounded, focused, and creatively nimble, that's becoming incredibly valuable.
So, wrapping this deep dive up, it feels like the core message is that creativity isn't something you necessarily wrestle into submission. It's more like a state you cultivate.
I think that's right. It's less about forcing the output and more about clearing the internal space, using these mindful awareness techniques so that innovative ideas have room to actually emerge.
And the key to making any of this work, from the color breathing to the mindful play,
is consistency. That came through really strongly. Even very short, regular sessions like that 5-minute continuous creation exercise seem to be enough to build and strengthen the neural pathways that support focus, resilience, and ultimately that flow state.
Consistency, not intensity necessarily.
Yeah.
So as people listening think about applying this maybe to their next project or just a problem they feel stuck on, what's the final, most practical takeaway?
Well, the research consistently points to internal resistance.
Yeah.
You know, that voice of self-doubt, the nagging perfectionism as the single biggest barrier to getting into flow.
Right.
So if we accept that mindfulness, this non-judgmental observation, helps us see those critical thoughts as just temporary mental events, like brief visitors passing through rather than undeniable truths.
Okay.
Then maybe consider this. What creative block could you tackle this week? Not by fighting the block itself, but just by noticing, observing the fear or the criticism underneath it. What happens if you shift your focus from trying to force a solution to simply taking the next small, authentic step while just watching the resistance? That shift alone might be enough to get things moving again.